Hey, what's going on, guys? Recently, I learned about a case that really unnerved me recently. And this involved a young 10-year-old boy who was crushed to death by a 340-pound foster mother that was supposed to take care of him, love and take care of him. But of course, he acted up just a little bit out of line, and she thought it fitting to punish him by laying on top of him so that he couldn't throw a fit anymore. Well, she definitely accomplished that, but the results of this decision was far from what she was looking for, and to be frank, it ended horribly. So this is Dakota Stevens. He is a 10-year-old from Indiana who was sat upon by his foster mother who was supposed to take care of him. And this happened after he attempted to get adopted by his neighbors. He ran off, went to their home, and pleaded with them, asking if they would adopt him. But of course, considering how situations were, that wasn't exactly how things would unfold. And he did this because he claimed that he was being at his foster home, that they were hitting him. I'm assuming the foster mother specifically is who he meant, and he did not want to partake in that abuse any longer, so he sought help. Unfortunately, this evil, disgusting gremlin known as Jennifer Lee Wilson was not happy with Dakota for doing this.
Last April, 10-year-old Dakota was in a new foster home. According to a report by the Indy Star, his parents lost custody of him and his younger sister in 2018. So that was back when Dakota was around 5 or 6, and he was bounced to different homes ever since. Then he landed in the care of Jennifer Wilson.
So just a little context for you guys wondering why he was in foster care, specifically. His parents, so his mother had struggled with addiction issues, right? So she had some drug problems, and then his real father had died. So the mother wasn't able to take care of him, so he was, given up to the foster care system and was just getting bounced around from home to home. And this home that he ended up at with Miss Jennifer Lee Wilson, he was only there for roughly a month before this happened.
Dakota wasn't in Jennifer's home that long, just about a month. However, during that adjustment period, on April 25th, paramedics were called to Jennifer's home. They rushed him to the hospital, but sadly he died, and in a terrifying way. So what happened? Well, on April 25th, Dakota ran over to a neighbor's home. He asked that neighbor a simple yet tough question to answer. Will you adopt me? According to police, he asked his neighbor this because he said he was being hit in the face, and his foster parents wouldn't let him call his case manager.
Yeah, so this story is honestly soul-crushing, especially hearing that the reason he ended up in this situation is because he reached out to a neighbor trying to ask to be adopted, basically a plea to be saved from being abused, and he was punished by being murdered for doing so. Like, that just tells you just how fucked up some of these systems can be, especially this foster care system, because even though they supposedly go through, these screening processes or whatever before they allow people to have that license to adopt or to foster children, you still end up with some wackos that don't even care about kids, and they're doing it as an exploit for money. Because the fact of the matter is, some of these people do get paid, compensated very, very well for doing this. And to them, it's an easy gig. And they might not care about kids at all. Clearly, this woman did not care about Dakota in the slightest. Because if she did, she wouldn't have been harming him the way that she did. She wouldn't have sat on him and crushed the life out of him. It's very obvious, and this sort of thing is more common than you might expect. I mean, there are plenty of parents that are extremely harmful and neglectful. I mean, people involved in relationships where somebody's extremely abusive towards their children, and then the other parent or whoever, the caretaker, does nothing to help the child. Now, this sort of thing, it's extremely common, happens all the time, and then at some point, the child winds up dead. Now everybody's scratching their heads wondering, how could this happen?
Dakota's foster mom, Jennifer, found him at the neighbor's home. But when the neighbor told Jennifer Dakota wanted her to call the police, Jennifer told her to mind her own business. Jennifer then was able to get Dakota back in the car and drive home. But it's what happened when they returned home that would have devastating consequences. When they returned home, Dakota initially refused to get out of the car. He got out of the car eventually. Likely still being upset, he screamed he was going to leave again. So what does Jennifer do to prevent him from leaving? Well, she sat on him. According to police, Jennifer didn't remember if she tackled Dakota or they just fell to the ground. But when police looked over at the ring camera footage, according to them, it showed Jennifer laying on Dakota's midsection. Now remember, he's just 10 years old, 4 feet 10 inches, a child. So the midsection where she was laying on was near his head and neck, all while Dakota was screaming. Dakota tried so hard to fight Jennifer off, he was fighting and flailing to get free. Then he went motionless. When he stopped moving, Jennifer thought he was faking it. His eyelids by this point, though, were already pale. She claimed she only laid on him for 5 minutes. But police say 2 clips from the ring camera video that ran about 7 minutes showed her sitting on Dakota while he wasn't moving.
First off, let me just say, every child, no matter how bratty or obnoxious or whatever you want to label them as, deserves to have a loving home, free from abuse, and not have to live with somebody that they're afraid of, like this woman, clearly. I mean, obviously this kid was terrified of this woman refusing to go inside of the home and trying to literally have a family, a nearby family, adopt him. He said, "I'd rather live with these people I barely even know rather than you." And she wouldn't even let him contact the case manager, nothing. Like, this was a dictatorship in this household, and this poor child unfortunately fell victim to this disgusting, vile, despicable human being. Now, her claim of, "Oh, I only sat on him or whatever for 5 minutes," it's not exactly a win. I don't think that's going to go over as well as you think it does. And then on top of that, 5 minutes is still an obscene amount of time. When you are that big, like, lady, you're not 100 pounds anymore. You're more than 3 times that. You can't do that. You can't do that to a small child. I don't understand how you can even conjure that ridiculous idea in your disgusting brain. I understand the trying to control what he's doing, trying to stop him from, having this temper tantrum or whatever. But how does this make sense? How does asphyxiating him make sense? And for such a long period of time. Okay, sure, say you do it for 10 seconds to teach him a lesson, to really be like, don't mess with me or I'll lay on you, kid. Okay, whatever. But 5 minutes? I'm not, and again, I just want to make it clear, I'm not even justifying 10 seconds. That's absolutely out of the question. I just think that if she really was just trying to get that point across that he needed to settle down and she laid on him for 10 seconds, that's a lot more reasonable than 5 whole minutes of this kid who's fighting for his life beneath you, screaming and kicking and doing everything he can. And here's the thing, when this kid passes out from oxygen deprivation, you don't, that doesn't kill you right away. When you pass out, you still have some time to recover from that, which means that he must have passed out from this oxygen deprivation and then she continued to lay on him for some undisclosed amount of time.
Another video showed Dakota still screaming, Jennifer on top of him, but her right arm and elbow are planted to the ground. Another video showed Jennifer on top of Dakota near his buttocks, while his arms were above his head, and he wasn't moving. One video showed Jennifer on her knee facing Dakota, who was already face down. It was only when he lost consciousness that Jennifer finally got off of him. She attempted to give him CPR and asked one of the other children inside the home to call 911. Police say Jennifer looked visibly distraught when they arrived. By this time, Dakota wasn't breathing. He had no pulse and later had to be airlifted to a hospital, but he was taken off life support 2 days later. Doctors say his brain was swollen and it was consistent with oxygen deprivation. The coroner's office ruled Dakota's death a homicide, and the cause was mechanical asphyxia. Dakota died in April of last year, but Jennifer wasn't arrested until July. She was found in a completely different state after a warrant was issued and a license plate reader detected her car. She was charged with reckless homicide, but ended up pleading guilty to that charge. Under Indiana law, that charge carried a max sentence of just 6 years in prison.
So she was sentenced to just 6 years in prison, with one of those years being on probation. Now, don't be mad at the judge, be mad at the system, because the judge gave her the maximum that they could for this crime, for reckless homicide. Only 6 years is the maximum for reckless homicide, which is bizarre to me. I think that should be significantly higher, especially when you did something more deliberate to cause it. Like, it's different if you're driving down the road and you're not paying attention, you accidentally like hit somebody with your car and you kill them. That would be considered reckless homicide as well. But this, she deliberately sat on this child. Obviously she wasn't thinking, oh, I'm gonna kill him, or maybe she was, and somehow, you know, during the court hearings got away with, oh, I didn't know, I wasn't planning on doing that, it was an accident entirely. Maybe she didn't, you know, the idea that doing this, crushing him, would asphyxiate him, even though I think anybody from the outside looking in would absolutely know that well before she did it. But anyway, unfortunately, this is the maximum penalty for this heinous, disgusting crime. And it is a crime in and of itself that's the maximum, that's all she is going to serve for literally murdering a child, an innocent child. She is only going to serve 6 years in prison. Now, I really, really wish that she would get more. I'm saying at least 20, maybe 30. But, you know, that's just my opinion. But I don't run the judicial system. I'm not a judge or anything like that. But I think she deserves significantly more time. And I'm sure all of you think that same thing. And this has honestly sparked an outrage with a lot of people that do not agree with this. But at the same time, I think a lot of those people don't understand that the judge did give the maximum sentence that they could. And this is the best that we're going to get. This woman is a danger. If she's not a danger, you know, maliciously, she is a danger from pure stupidity. Anyway, that's it for this video. Please consider purchasing my book, The Elevator Man. And if you did enjoy, feel free to like and subscribe button. Until next time.